from 5 p.m. and on Sundays, 1:30 p.m.
Angelou was a civil rights activist, poet, and award-winning author known for her acclaimed 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and her numerous poetry and essay collections. Angelou was born on April 4, 1928 in St. Louis, Missouri. Angelou had a difficult childhood. Her parents split up when she was very young. Around the 1960s, Angelou lived in Ghana working as an editor and a freelance writer. Angelou also held a position at the University of Ghana for a time before she joined a community of revolutionist returnees exploring Pan-Africanism and became close with human rights activist and black nationalist leader Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. In 1961, Angelou appeared in an off-Broadway production of Jean Genet's The Blacks with James L. Jones, Lou Gossett Jr. and Cicely Tyson, and went on to earn a Tony Award nomination for her role in the play Look Away 1973 and an Emmy Award nomination for her work on the television miniseries Roots 1977, among other honors. Angelou's career has seen numerous accolades, including the Chicago International Film Festival's 1998 Audience Choice Award and a nod from the Acapulco Black Film Festival in 1999 for Down in the Delta. She published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and is credited with a list of plays, movies, more than 50 honorary degrees, and television shows spanning over 50 years. She also won 2 NAACP Image Awards in the Outstanding Literary Work Non-Fiction category for her 2005 cookbook and 2008 Letter to My Daughter. After experiencing health issues for a number of years, Angelou died on May 28, 2014 at her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In May 2021, it was announced that Angelou will be one of the first women to be commemorated with a new series of quarters from the U.S. Mint.
Okay, thank you very much for staying with us. As we were saying, Professor Kayode as well, I was just walking in, and he's now, well in place. Thank you very much for coming, Kayode.
Thank you, Yori.
Really appreciate your coming.
Bringing me.
Indeed. Professor Kayode as well is Research Professor of Political Behavior, Institute of African and Diaspora Studies at the University of Lagos. He's a regular contributor to our diplomatic affairs, and it's in that context that you are here now, because at this midterm, every sector of the society has been getting assessments, and so we thought that let's see what you think of the diplomatic segment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. It's been 2 years now. It needs to be said that 2 years without the appointment of ambassadors. We'll come to other aspects, of course, because the president has been very busy. Shuttle diplomacy, they call it. He's been to quite a number of countries, but we haven't had ambassadors. First off, how important is that? The reason we have been told is that, one, paucity of funds, but then subsequently that was updated to, and also the fact that politics was delaying these ambassadorial appointments. I said, okay, we're going to wait for the prof to get here to find out what exactly that means.
Well, politics brings possibilities and impossibilities. What has happened in Nigeria in the last 2 years has shown me that it is possible for a country like Nigeria to operate without ambassadors around the world for that long. I would argue it before now.
You wouldn't have thought it's a commonplace
thing? Probably wouldn't have thought it would be done anywhere, especially given Nigeria's role in West Africa, in Africa, and around the world. However little we think we are, Nigeria is very strategic to many parts of the world. So what President Tinubu has done is to show us that it is possible to pause certain things, however important they are, while you make certain arrangements and rearrangements to ensure that things, come up better. I've been following the ambassadorial, appointment and all this, and what I read is partly what you said, that there is paucity of fund. While that is not untrue, I do not think that's the holistic
The whole story.
explanation, you know. The president must have seen some things that he needed to rework. It needed to readjust in terms of staffing, in terms of the quality of representation, in terms of the balancing power of representation.
That's where politics comes in.
That's where politics comes in. Balancing in terms of domestic policy, balancing in terms of international diplomacy.
Okay.
I think before Tinubu, those appointments had been made, perhaps happy-go-lucky, perhaps in a ritualistic way. Okay, so we must appoint ambassadors, let them go, and let them go. But this time,
when you say ritualistic,
ritualistic in the sense that this is what we have been doing. So without perusing whether it has been working well or in the direction we want, let's keep doing it. So I think the president is more pragmatic. That's my view. I'm not in his mind, but that's just what I think it is. So he's been busy moving from one part of the world to another, perhaps to sample for himself, perhaps to see for himself the need for this, whether in this capacity, or for that, whether again in that capacity. I will ordinarily see it as a very welcoming, albeit disturbing, but approach. And if indeed what I've speculated is what the president has been doing, I think we're going to have it much better at the end of the day.
Because all of that time would have been used for, an intense scrutiny
re-engineering
of assets and then re-engineering, that kind of a thing.
System,
well, you said that one thing that occurred to you is that if it hadn't happened the way it has happened in Nigeria, you would never have thought that it was possible for well nigh 2 years of the Tinubu administration. We don't have. Are there any downsides to that? Are there any downsides, do you think?
Say again?
Are there any downsides to a situation like that?
Okay, so there must have been, definitely. Because when you don't have ambassadors around the world, it means that your voice is not loud all over the world. It means that some other structures of government or institutions are telling your stories for you. And of course, if you know what ambassadors are, they are deliberately trained to carry out certain messages of their government around the world.
Even new ones? Even the new ones?
Oh, yes, they will be trained.
Before they are posted?
You don't just pick ambassadors on the road and then transfer him like a minister of sports. No. You must train. You must investigate thoroughly the background of the person locally. And then the international community where the person is going to serve must also thoroughly investigate. So the procedure for appointment is much longer, much more meticulous than the ordinary appointment that we have locally. So I'm aware of that, because this is my area. So, but I'm not unaware that we have the staff of the embassy around the world, the charge d'affaires and all this stuff.
And some military
people who are equally trained to do what an ambassador should be able to do. But I don't think it's the same. In a classroom where you need a professor and you have a senior lecturer there, the productivity cannot be the same. So I appeal to the president that the working should have an end for this second year. The real representatives around the world this beginning of the third year.
Indeed. And speaking about, if you were to ask many people, so what is Nigeria's foreign policy all about? Not many people will be able to come out with it flip like that, but I was just doing some reading on the matter, and people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs say that the Tinubu administration's policy, foreign policy, is anchored on development, democracy, demography, and diaspora. The 4 Ds.
Okay, the 4 Ds. Okay. Yeah, okay. You want me to comment on
yes,
this?
Yes,
please. Policies are unique to governments in power. If they are not unique, their interpretations are also unique to them. So it's either you come in and you have a new policy, or you come in, you meet an old policy, but you give it another interpretation.
I see.
Whichever way, Your policy, if it is new, or the interpretations that you are giving to the policy are subject of the global developments, the occurrences around the world. So, if the president came in two years ago and decided to focus on democracy, development, demography, and what's the other one?
Diaspora.
And diaspora, it's a clear vision that all over the world today, nations that are not democratic are not regarded as fair actors in the affairs of the world. Okay. Therefore, in Africa, Nigeria has a role to play as the giant, as the leader, hegemonic leader, so that if Nigeria is able to build democracy, other countries around Africa will so emulate. Demography. I mean, we must control the growth of the people, where we are, what we are in terms of structure, population, and that links to the diaspora. You know, with the far right taking over the world, you know, with neo-nationalism taking new dimensions around the world, every serious-minded country will look towards the diaspora. What is happening? What treatments are people getting? Vice versa, those who also come to us because the world is now a global village. So emphasis on diaspora is also, in theory, a very good one. And so the policy of Nigeria put together in terms of international relations and diplomacy, as far as I can see, I'm not a politician, I hope you know that. I don't know the political undertone that you have there, but as far as I can see, I think the president is in the right direction, and we should follow his speaking.
Well, he's been doing a lot of work himself. Everybody knows that for a fair bit of time there, he spent out of the country. He was traveling quite a bit. He's been to many countries, both in Africa and also internationally. And people were, arguably, people will say that his visit to China is one of the notable ones. Everyone was important, but people think that the visit to China, where a number of understandings were erected, that surely, you know, counts for much. But then there's also, I think he's also received the American Secretary of State, you know, to balance things up a bit. Talk to me about that, because as you know, between the US and America, Nigeria doesn't want to be caught anywhere in the middle. We want to be friends of both, don't they?
And I must tell you, Nigeria should not be caught in the middle. But whether you like it or not, the reality of the world as of today is that you cannot ignore either bloc. You ignore China at your peril. You ignore the US at your peril. So part of the diplomacy, that we call it, is for the president to understand the midway and how to diplomatically deal with the right and the left, which has been the body language of the Nigerian government even since independence. Okay. You must play smart because of your role in the international community. So in this case, I think what Nigeria should do, or probably is already doing, is adopt what I call the eclectic approach.
Okay.
You know, each foreign issue should be treated on its own merit. Don't go out with sacrosanct, immutable, cut and dried policy that will appear you are here permanently. You don't want to listen to the side. Okay, smart countries don't do that. Not anymore. Not the way the world is today. So the presidency, the Nigerian government, should adopt the eclectic approach. Every issue in the international community should be thoroughly debated at home. And then expert opinions should be sought to locate the interest of Nigeria. The interest of Nigeria. Short run, mid run, long run interest of Nigeria. It is based on the ability to identify and clearly delineate that interest that we're going to take international decision. And that is what is safe for our country.
Indeed, very interesting. And especially, well, talking about, you just gave this example, you know, to help people understand how diplomats and in particular countries and their diplomacy are attached to these things. The word eclectic was quite interesting because I guess there's a sense in which you'd see that that America has become, under President Trump, has become more eclectic, if you want.
That's the reality of the world
than ever before. And so today, that is the reality of the world.
That's the reality of the world today.
Now, Nigeria can't be seen to be judgmental about anything.
No. You cannot just be seated, armchair, and then daydreaming about. The reality of the world today is that you have to treat each matter on its own merit. Even America is not spared. Trump, like him or hate him, has come under a series of criticism. But people forget that the world today under Trump is different from the world under JF Kennedy.
That's right.
And that is what nations should do. Of course, errors will be committed. Of course, there could be unforeseen consequences of policies. I mean, this is human, this is natural, it happens everywhere. But the reality of the world today is such that nations that want to move forward must be eclectic. I am not recommending the Trump version, but in terms of the idea, your country first, and that's the focus. Nigeria first.
Very interesting, because as you know, Trump has America first, and then in recent times we've also heard President Tinubu's administration come out with a Nigeria first.
That's what I think is
philosophy.
correct. That's what I think is correct. Because you can't, even when you go into religion and a book says, love your neighbor as you love yourself, there's a standard. You are the standard. You must love yourself. Then you compare the love you have yourself, essentially, you compare it to yourself. So Nigeria first, your country first, and whatever is going to be in the interest of your country will define, color your international approach or diplomacy or policy, as the case may be. So as I said, Jory, I sincerely hope that the president has been able to utilize this window of 2 years, which I never believed would make any sense, but it looks like it was even possible. It was possible in the first place. But I sincerely hope that the president will have utilized this window to do this reworking, reorientations, including the thinking of those who will ultimately become our ambassadors. They must understand this policy and then go into the world with the idea that Nigeria should come first.
So all the while, no doubt there are scientists, diplomatic experts in all sorts of think tanks. Not all of them will be. In fact, I don't know the extent to which diplomacy and politics align, because a lot of people seem to, as you've just said, you are a student of, well, since you are a research professor of political behavior, part of that political behavior is politics.
Of course, definitely.
It's part of that behavior is politics.
Even diplomacy is politics. Even
policy.
International relations is politics.
In its own right.
At a very elementary level, when you get to teach your students, a very great debate is always the difference between politics and international relations. There are schools of thought that think they are virtually the same thing. It's just the ecology that differs. Where politics in its raw sense refers to the behavior of people at a particular locality, international relations will talk about what nations behave like when they meet one another at the global level. So, and you have nations, you have non-state actors, you have international cooperation, corporations, and you have same at the domestic level. So the technicalities notwithstanding, when you talk about politics, you talk about diplomacy. When you talk about diplomacy, French will say, c'est la même chose. You are saying the same thing.
This brings me to the situation, if we come down to Africa for the moment, and the African Union on the one hand, ECOWAS on the other, and happenings that we thought we wouldn't hear of anymore, coups in these modern times. But you know the whole situation with Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and all of that. And the initial stern approach of of AU. Was it AU or ECOWAS?
ECOWAS was
headed
much
by
louder.
Was much louder, headed by President Tinubu.
Yeah.
But then it got to a stage where he even had said at the time, being a fervent student of diplomacy and politics, that nobody, coups are out of this way. We will not stand for it. We will not tolerate it. And if necessary, we shall deploy the kind of force that is necessary. There was an outcry from home, not to mention those other people that ultimately led to them, withdrawing and saying that, look, we're going to form our own AES, Association of Sahelian States. So this also is illustrating part of what you were talking about, doesn't it? That people have to be, I suppose Nigeria has to be mindful of how it is seen.
That's what it is.
In those those publics.
That exactly is the meaning of politics. Because in politics, whether locally or at the level of international community, the ultimate question is, what is the interest that I need to protect?
Okay.
And I like your analysis. I think I was here at your studio to discuss it as at that time. And what I recommended is ultimately what the president took as an approach, that military will not be a solution.
You had said it at the time.
Because the breakdown of democratic values in Africa necessitated the military intervention. Action and reaction are equal and opposite. The citizens know the downsides of the military. But it's like you swear that God forbid that I eat the food of my enemy. But your friend refuses to go to the kitchen.
He refuses.
What do? You die of hunger. Then how do you live to tell the story? I think that's the situation that explains, not justifies.
It's a very interesting Yoruba proverb that you translated into the English and brought in here.
Yoruba will say, that's
so this about the pragmatism that is required.
Pragmatism. Pragmatism.
But unfortunately, I don't know if itself into, you know what, we're going to keep the door open, even as they have, pulled out. It's regrettable, but we just, in fact, it was even echoed at in the recent ECOWAS summit going on, a celebration of ECOWAS, that it's regrettable that they have gone, but the doors are forever open. Again, that's being diplomatic.
That's being diplomatic. And I mean, a very practical example, I tell you, is the issue of visiting between the two countries. As an ECOWAS citizen, you don't need a passport, really. You don't need a visa to get into the other country. Just your card.
Yes.
Card identity takes you to any part of ECOWAS. I've done it before.
Okay, so that is actually working.
It's actually working. I've done it before without passport. I deliberately did not use my passport, and I tested it, and it worked. Till today, that still operates. Till today. I mean,
that also has its downsides, but that's a different
yes,
story.
It's a different thing. But it tells you that it's not only ECOWAS as a body, it's not only President Tinubu, who is the leader of ECOWAS, but on their own part, they are also subtle about it. They don't want to be confrontational because they know the pros and cons, just like the other side know the pros. And that's what makes the world go round. You must understand the interest, you must understand the dynamics at the other end. Two nations cannot share similar problems, 100%. Do not necessarily share similar challenges. If they have peculiar challenges that tempted them into taking that kind of decision, rather than outright condemnation, you launch understanding and investigation that probably could assist them into getting to your side.
So the initial reaction, was that something of a faux pas, if not an outright mistake?
I'm sure. Well, you don't want to say the president made mistake,
no.
do you?
No.
You know, in Nigeria we have this KBC mentality. The president doesn't make mistake. But the fact is that it wasn't a well thought out outburst. I mean, and that must have taught the president a lesson. That on international issues especially, hey, you call your experts together, you know, and that's why one of the appeals I always make to the president, either before now or after now, is that Nigeria has too many experts to be making such very cheap mistakes around the world.
Okay.
You call your think tank together. This is the problem. 1,000,001 research works have been done on such a situation.
Okay.
All the experts will do is just tap the shelf, tell you, no, we've worked on this. When this happens, this is what you do. And then when you come out to make statement, you have made a statement that is informed, that will not boomerang the situation, that probably will placate it, and let's have an ECOWAS. Because we cannot afford to lose ECOWAS in West Africa.
Indeed. We'll talk a bit more about that when we come back from the break. Okay. So let's go on a quick break. Do please stay with us. We'll be right back.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Good morning, Marina Station and all the passengers. Efficient, it's comfortable.
This development will go a long way in reducing congestion and emission.
The trains are long-term solution to Lagos traffic challenges.
This is where we take the final, decisions on policies, programs of government. I will have to ensure that, the narration of Lagos as a PLC is taken very, very seriously.
This is a major pedestrian bridge linking Oyinbo here to Apapa Road over there.
With this overpass, we are providing what we call permanent solutions.
This place is one of the most dangerous areas at the biosecurity environment.
This can go into the news and every crumbs of your neighborhood.
Our goal is to remain as Africa's model megacity, to move our GDP from the 5-6 position to the 3rd position, and we believe it's achievable with all the commitments we have.
Explore the city of Lagos, where dreams are made and possibilities are endless. I'm Adedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Every major news story is with many perspective and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Okay, welcome back. Kaode Eswola, Research Professor of Political Behavior out of the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies of the University of Lagos. And it's been quite an exciting conversation regarding Nigeria's foreign affairs thrust. He's, commented on the 4D sort of, shall we say, placement, development, democracy, and diaspora. He's sort of linked all those together, that when you look at it, all of these are actually intertwined. And he's also had some comments. Maybe you will too, if you call in, on the fact that Nigeria hasn't operated with ambassadors in the past 2 years, a little over, because they were recalled shortly before this administration. But I've also learned something from the professor. He says that, look, foreign affairs, and especially its policy, it comes from the government. It will differ from administration to administration. And even if there is no radical change, there will usually be a spin of this particular administration.
Peculiar interpretation based on the dominant situation around the world.
I suppose that, to sort of wrap up a bit on this whole matter of democracy and the president's love for democracy, which he sort of put up there on the altar when there was the situation with Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger, when he said categorically that it would not be tolerated. But without necessarily saying so, there was a pullback from that situation by simply going into silence. And you've since explained all of that. Another thing that I've sort of learned is that you say that in this country, as opposed also in most countries, there's a wealth of information, a wealth of data, a wealth of research that those who need it can
tap
pull,
into.
They can tap into, and so that situations don't become unduly sticky. Now that we have this, I want to remind our viewers, especially if you just joined us, that Kayode has said that this delay, if one wants to call it that, could be as a result of so many things. It could be that it is being studied thoroughly and that we'll all be the better for it, and that you'll get a depth of quality when we do come on, and that's what we do need. But let me take you into the matter of that particular situation. Now, of course, France, in the West African sub-region, has been blamed by the countries who pulled out, and the fact that our president is seen to publicly have a great relationship with the president of France, do you think this would have complicated matters? Because our president he has still maintained those friendships. Even recently, he has been seen to be in France. Does this complicate, because I'm just looking at it from a human point of view, say, look at this Oga. We are complaining here, and we are saying that these people are behind our problems. And the least he could do would be that, my enemy is your enemy.
Yeah, but and the enemy of my enemy is my enemy.
But apparently it doesn't work like that.
Well, it really doesn't work like that. Even locally, in terms of politics, I mean, we can start examples from where you are. There's a case of a man who was governor of a state, who was a member of a political party, who decided to join the president of a country who comes under another different opposing political party. And the interpretation is that in the interest of the people of my state, I have been asked to help the president, not the party, to solve a particular problem. That
for the benefit of the country.
It's a brilliant explanation. I am not convinced, but it's a very brilliant explanation. And so you take the same thing into the international community. France hated, persecuted, disgraced out of the Sahel, with complaints all here and there. Evidences were shown. We're not going to be judgmental about that. But President Tinubu must relate with France.
Okay.
President Tinubu must also relate with the Sahelian countries. There's no way it can be completely hostile to either side, because he must protect the interest of Nigeria, So it's now a factor of deciding whether the interest of Nigeria coalesces with that of Sahel more than that of France. Or probably, the president could also do this, find a way of ensuring that France and the Sahel will still ultimately come back and work out things better. In politics, doors don't close. You don't close doors because it's all about what interests I have. And those interests are defined periodically, situationally, and by other factors that may come into mind at any point in time. So I don't see the president doing anything extremely wrong there, albeit I understand that the Sahelian state will be very hostile to that kind of association. And it's only natural and human. But the president should do what is in the interest of Nigeria.
Indeed.
Not what pleases Sahel, not what pleases France. What is in the interest of Nigeria is what the president should do.
And talking about the interest of Nigeria, since the relations sort of ruptured, arguably, with some of these states in terms of terrorism, because my thinking is that, look, since there's been this break and not a friendly one, might those countries look the other way, whereas before they would have devoted resources, for example, at their borders, because our brother country, whether big or ordinary brother, let's leave that out of the equation for now. Is there a sense in which we might have suffered because allies that we had before whereas they might not necessarily stop being allies, but you get what I'm trying to say. Is it a bit more complex now? Because there's been an upsurge, again, arguably, in terrorist attacks.
Definitely, because the situation of terrorism is something that, to me, remains a mystery. I've had military explanation, I've had political explanation, I've had diplomatic explanation. I'm yet not convinced that we've been able to crack the problem properly.
Okay.
What we see are the symptoms, and those symptoms run across West Africa, especially the Sahelian states, and those coastal states that share borders with the Sahelian state. If there is a problem in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Benin Republic, and those problems have to do with terrorism, if you don't have good relationship with those countries, definitely it will flow into your own country and make things more complicated. And that's exactly what we are witnessing. From reports, media reports, the social media now is agog, so there's this possibility of anything coming in. But when you have report from verified sources, like established, media centers like this, you trust them. And those sources have been consistent in telling us that the situation of terrorism is not getting better. Even when they may not be increasing, it's not getting better. Considering what the president promised when he was coming, a lot of people are worried. I am, you understand? To the extent that even countries, even states or parts of the country that never witnessed this before are now beginning to become victims. The question is that, are we moving forward, or we are retrogressing, or we are perambulating, as it were? The piece of advice is that when you are roasting granite for a blind man, you should be whistling.
Yet another problem.
It does not appear.
Yet another Yoruba problem that has come into the English.
I'm sorry, I'm Yoruba. I'm quite used to.
But they're so graphic. When you're roasting groundnut for a blind man,
you must be whistling.
Remember to continue to whistle.
Because the blind man must trust that you are not eating the groundnut. He doesn't see anyway. Nigerians are the blind people now. Because definitely they don't have all the information that the president has over this terrorism issue. But they must see the president as doing something. That, fairly speaking, has not been done in this country. What Nigerians feel is that the president is taking this thing with levity, busy traveling from one part of the world. Of course, those ones have their advantages. We analyzed this before. But are the people getting that message? No. It should be a national emergency. Every day, the Minister of Defense, every day, should come to the public and brief the Nigerian people what we have been able to achieve on this terrorism issue. Every day. Because it's a national emergency. I think we have got to a level where the soul of human being does not even make sense to us anymore. When this started around 2011, you heard that terrorists blast one place and kill 5 people. Say, 5 people. Now we're talking about 500 people at one go. Nobody is even saying anything about it. We're not building a nation if we come that way. The president needs to declare a state of emergency on that and feed the people back every day on the problem, the nature, the dimension, the possible solution, and the timeline of where we're going to get it. I know efforts have been made.
Okay,
for
because
instance,
I was going to say that.
Efforts have been made. But how many of the people outside there are aware, of this effort?
So would you blame, because the president seems to have had that sort of bent, would you blame, therefore, members of his cabinet, his ministers in this case, who have not been doing what you have been saying, been meticulous about speaking?
Not at all. I won't blame them.
Okay.
I put them there. I give them agenda. If they don't follow my agenda, I don't have to put them there. So if I'm doing something that needs to get to the public and my Minister of Information is not doing so, I check. Why? Nigerians don't have business with ministers. Nigerians never elected the minister. They elected Mr. President on the trust that he has the capacity to choose the best persons for the best jobs that have to be done in the country. And I'm not saying the jobs are not done. Mark my word. I am aware efforts have been made. Recently we talked about forest guards, approval and all these things. These are ways of checking the situation. But are the people getting the message? What stops the presidency from taking this approach that I'm talking about every day? Because a daily issue, we're talking about the lives of the citizens of this country.
Because there are countries where the headship speaks to the country
directly. Okay, so
on a daily basis.
We can forgive our president because he's an elderly person. He probably will not have that kind of energy. He's above 70, well above 70. In Africa, age is virtue. But that is why you have the young ones who are ministers who still have the energy to drive around. Let them communicate with the people.
So that's why I was saying that, would you therefore blame those ones? Because the president seems to have, would appear to some to have done so by admonishing them to let the people know what we are about, what we are doing.
But when they are then not doing it, who checks them? It's the president. I still blame the president on this. Some other people will have other view, but that's my view. If I put you in charge of something and you refuse to perform, I check you. It's not those who are supposed to, receive from you that should check. And it's not rocket science. Criticism is not condemnation. We're saying the president could have been making some efforts, some sin, some very, very abstract. But somebody must inform the people, because ultimately, in 2027, however problematic our democracy is, power still lies in the hand of the people. They will vote. They must know what they are voting to return or reject, as the case may be. If they don't know, who talks to them?
And it's interesting because with this conversation we're having, it's about diplomacy and foreign affairs, but there's a domestic component to it as well, as you illustrated.
Yes.
Because I suppose it's what we are domestically. It is a version of that that
reflects in the international community. Yes. Every foreign policy is a coloration of a domestic policy. What you are at home is what people see you outside. So we must start from home, as it were. If Nigerians are busy running away with malice aforethought to Niger, to Burkina Faso, to Mali every day, with desperation to migrate, even given any circumstance, there's no way those countries will respect Nigeria. It's not possible. It's just human. If you had been so well organized at home, why are your citizens running away from here? It doesn't mean people don't migrate for genuine, professional reasons, in which case we talk about mobility and not migration. But it looks like Nigeria is the only country in the world where people are grieved at home and they run away condemning the system that fed them. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You get primary school education almost free, secondary school almost free, university almost free. then you now have the opportunity to leave that country to another country, and you begin to rain curses upon your own country. You know why it is so? Those who are getting those advantages do not even know that they are getting them. Information. So somebody who complained about the bad educational system in Nigeria will then sell his father's property, house, and car to be able to do 1 year master's in another country, where those who are going to teach him are not even superior than those who have taught him here at Dongangaji. But because they lack information, they don't do that. So for me, information is key. Somebody must be out there every day telling Nigerians what is going on. The president, we can excuse him, but somebody must be there. On terrorism, this is what we're doing. This is the gain we have made. These are the challenges we have. We need suggestions. We need opinion. That is how nations are run, because especially when we're talking about democracy.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say something, but I didn't want you to start. Mazi Okorafor is on the line.
Okay, Mazi,
and it might take up some time. Good morning, Mazi Okorafor. Good morning.
Good morning, Sayori. Good morning, I guess.
Yes.
You see, when we look at the foreign policy, Mazi Okorafor, you see, the policy, what we have benefited from. Look at the number of Nigerians in Canada. So far, so good. See the number and look at the parliamentary post they got between that to the date. It's very, very encouraging, which means there is hope for Nigerians. Now, you come back to see Nigeria in diaspora. Many of them are now at least aware that they have a say. That is why you see many of them are fighting for at least people outside Nigeria, what they do, that they still have the right to do what? To vote, which they have been pushing it to the National Assembly that Nigerians outside should do what? You have the right to vote. All these things are coming in within these 2 years. There are disadvantages and advantages. But we should look at the advantages. When there's disadvantage, you come up with disadvantage with facts and figures. So the authority concerned will go back and do the needful. That is what we call the government to move forward. So Nigeria, but I think that the government as we transfer the ambassadors, honestly speaking, the government should do the needful. We should have our ambassadors, because if you see how many Nigerians are suffering in Libya.
Okay. That was the network. But thank you very much, Mazi. Okay, he's touched on some of the things. I think you also alluded to that it's only when you have the very highest level of diplomatic staff in various countries that Nigeria's interests can be adequately taken care of. So he spoke there of Libya. As a citizen, he might have a relative, he might have friends in there, and will be bemoaning the fact that we don't. Well, thanks to Abike Dabiri and her Diaspora Commission.
She's been doing a lot of good work.
Indeed. In fact, the work she's been doing is like, what? Is it it's sort of ambassadorial.
I think that's what it is. She's been representing all the foreign envoys, over the years, and I think we should give her kudos. And I think states too should also replicate that institution. As we have Diaspora Commission for at the federal level, we should also have at the state level. They complement one another to do this kind of job, in case we have this kind of break that will be.
Well, Okadi, you've given snippets of what could be summed up as your sort of impressions, but I want to ask that, well, as a scholar now, as a scholar of diplomacy, coming out of, especially political research professor of political behavior, coming out of the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, what would be your assessment of the Tinubu's foreign affairs ministry?
On this surface?
Yes.
5 over 10. I won't give more than that. And I gave the 5, I will give the 5 meticulously, because I don't want to be too judgmental. Remember when I was talking, I said, I want to believe that the president is doing this because of this reason, because you don't just do that sweeping generalization. And that if so, the gap should be taken to do A, B, C, D before we ultimately come out. So I'm giving that 5 because I think and I hope the president is doing the right thing. For the 10 or the 9 to come, or the 7 to come, we must have ambassadors.
Okay.
Who will be appropriately representing us all across the globe, because that structure is extremely important. It's high time we had it.
I think it's going to be smart of me to sort of leave it here. There's a heck of a lot more to talk about, but we don't have
some other day we'll have
some other day we'll have it. So I want to thank you very much, Kayode, Professor Isola, Research Professor of Political Behavior. So that's our program today then. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Indeed. So do please join us on Monday, next date for our program, as we don't do the weekends. I am Yori Folari. Do have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.
The Inspector General of Police has met with senior officers to review the state of security.
We are continuing our coverage of the arrest of Godwin Emefiele.
The Senate has summoned the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria to properly brief the Senate regarding the state of the economy.
What I will never take.
Let's now bring you more development from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, where an explosion has taken place. Tell us about this incident.
TVC News. First with breaking news.
The TVC News at 7 and the TVC News at 10 are not like any other news broadcast.
It's the big news hour, the hour for the big breaking stories.
Meet Benga Oreshegun, a fearless voice and an advocate for the truth. He's bringing fresh energy and bold insights to journalists' Hangout.
Get ready for deeper analysis and dynamic perspectives. Join me and Babajide Kolade Otitoju with other veteran journalists on Journalists Hangout. Weekdays from 5 p.m. and on Sundays 1:30 p.m.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Thank you for joining us on TVC Midday News. I am Abosede Adeniwa. We'll begin with this sad development in Niger State, where dozens of people have lost their lives and properties destroyed following a heavy downpour in Mokwa town on Thursday. The National Emergency Management Agency confirmed that the death toll has risen to 111, with more than 3,000 people displaced in the disaster. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Governors Forum, in a statement, sympathized with the government and people of Niger State on the devastating flood. The governors are commiserating with the affected families and have expressed support to the state government at this difficult time. Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and Governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman Abdurazak, also commended the interventions of the state government and its coordination with the emergency responders to support the victims of this disaster. The Nigeria Governors Forum is also appealing to residents to support government efforts to mitigate the impact of climate change, while expressing its commitment in working with the Office of the National Security Advisor and the National Emergency Management Agency to help citizens cope with this global challenge and strengthen mitigative actions and relief institutions. Our senior reporter, Chenemi Bameye, is standing by to give us more updates on this development. Chenemi, very sad news coming in from Mokwa with more than 110 people dead as a result of flooding, this rain. What more can you tell us about the situation there?
Hi, Abosede. It's quite a sad event and story for the people here today. We've been here since morning, and the death toll, unfortunately, keeps rising, and there are still more persons missing. You know, right here behind me is the neighborhood, or the parts of the neighborhood that suffered this devastation heavily. You know, I spoke to families, and certain families say they have up to 15 persons missing. You know, search and rescue operations is ongoing already. The National Emergency Management Agency are here, and also the State Emergency Management Agency, and the figures are still rising, while a lot of persons are still missing. Right now, the Deputy Governor, I learned, is on his way to this place to have first-hand assessment of the situation right here, and to also communicate with the people.
All right, so behind you, I can see mud, I can see people. So just help us paint a picture. What exactly is the situation in the community and across the United States following this heavy downpour?
Okay, right now, what you're seeing right now, you can see people digging up the debris. They're searching for two things. First, for dead bodies, and secondly, for any piece of the property that they can recover. But trust me, they've lost everything in this place. A while ago, there's a photo lab that used to be right in front of me. I spoke with the owner of the photo lab, and he told me how he had lost millions of equipment worth millions of naira right there, where you can see right now used to be a standard photo lab, and these people have lost everything. So right now the mood is quite a sad one, and then some of the persons that you see here are relatives of those that used to live here, or those that had lost their properties in this place. Once it's evening, they have to go and stay with their relatives. Then in the morning, and they come back to dig up to see whatever that they can find in this place.
Chaneme Bameye for us in Niger State. Thank you for that update. Well, let's turn attention to another development where the Nigerian Army says it has stepped up operations in the northeastern region to curtail the movement and influence of terrorist groups. But this was evident last night when Nigerian troops stationed in Damasak successfully expelled a coordinated attack by fighters of the Islamic State West Africa province in the area. Sources say the attempted assault on the military occurred at approximately 9 p.m. on Thursday, when suspected ISWAP insurgents launched a surprise offensive on the town located near the Nigerian border with the Niger Republic. The attackers, reportedly in large numbers and heavily armed, were met with fierce resistance from the troops on ground. According to initial field reports,